Quick mic check. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late. I was trying to dial in on a Zoom line I had yesterday, and I kept getting the meeting is in. This is another meeting or something. So I finally figured it out.
Well, we're glad you did. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 19th, 2020 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel, and the meeting is now called to order. Please silence all of your electronic devices, and let me introduce to our attendees this morning our Charter Panel team. I'm Deborah Kaufman, Assistant Commissioner here at DESE, and I will be chairing the meeting. To my right is Philip Baldwin and Sonia Wright McMurray, and then joining us via Zoom is Dr. Nakama Williams. So good morning, panel. And Ms. Webb, we're ready to begin with the first item, please.
Good morning, Tracy Webb from the Charter Unit. The first item on the agenda is an amendment request to be rescinded from the Cabot Academic Center for Excellence. They presented this amendment request last month to be able to enroll their students that wanted to be 100% virtual in their charter. Because that could cause some accountability issues for them by moving back and forth, they have found a different path to do that by those students staying enrolled in their original school, and so they would like to rescind their amendment request.
Questions? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Baldwin, a second by Ms. Wright McMurray to accept their request to rescind their application or their amendment request.
Yes.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's, motion passes. Do we need to fill out a sheet or?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Number 2, please.
Number 2 is an amendment request for River Valley Virtual Academy in the Van Buren School District. I really thought they were going to be on site, but I see at least one of them on the Zoom. Miss Nancy Robbins is the only one that I see from there.
We have Nancy Robbins and Jennifer Binney.
Okay, great. So they are asking for an amendment request to increase their enrollment cap and a couple of other, just to increase their enrollment cap from, this year they're at 275 and they're asking to increase that to 1,000. So I will let Miss Nancy Robbins present that request.
Good morning, Van Buren. Ms. Robbins?
Okay,
and who is with you? Nancy,
ahead.
who's with you?
Okay, Jennifer Feeney is our River Valley actual administrator.
All right.
And so I'm going to let her explain. I'm here too to answer questions.
Okay. If you'll stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You're going to have 20 minutes. And Ms. Hyatt, do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Okay. You'll have 20 minutes and then an additional 5 if you need to just kind of finish up. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Feeney. I'm the coordinator for the River Valley Virtual Academy. This year, our cap as part of our charter agreement is at 275. As part of the Arkansas Ready for Learning model, our school district has opted into, we are an option for our students in Van Buren to come and do a 100% virtual model. So with that said, we have a lot of interest and an increased enrollment in our charter. Right now, we've taken over 1,000 interested families. Right now, they have not fully enrolled, but we've had about 1,000 or a little more interested in our enrollment. We want to make sure we're prepared if that's what our families want to go ahead and go forward with as part of the Ready for Learning model. And so that's why we've asked for an increase to 1,000.
Thank you. So I was a little unclear in the application. Are you requesting the 1,000 just for the 2021 school year or for the remainder of your charter?
I'm thinking we can probably do it. We just probably need it for the 1 year due to the Ready for Learning model. We only have 2 years total left in our charter agreement. And so either way, I mean, whether we have it for the next 2 years or for just this year, we can revisit it if we need to and see how life is going at that point. Either way works. And we can just revisit next year if we need to keep it at 1,000.
We do anticipate that some students may really like this. I don't expect it's going to be the numbers that we have at this point interested, but I do think probably some students are really going to like this. And so I do see an increased enrollment, but I think our projected original enrollment figures for next year would probably cover us because we haven't been normally having but 55 to 60 students in it. It's grown a little every year, but I don't anticipate it jumping all the way to 350. So I do think that this will be mainly for this year only.
And just for the record, the Office of Public School Accountability has gone over all of the accountability scenarios and that you are well informed of all of the pros and cons.
Yes, ma'am. And we shared that with our superintendent.
Thank you. Other questions? Sonia? Dr. Williams?
Yes, and forgive me for if I missed this. Your current enrollment cap is 275,
Yes,
and you're looking to go to 1,000.
yes.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about your growth. What's the rationale why you need to grow? I was reading through this, and currently my screen is not very clear on what I'm trying to read here.
It's okay. So with the Ready for Learning model that the school districts have adopted, with giving students more choices about how they come back to school next week, we've had a large increase. We're over 1,000 families right now have shown interest in enrolling with us. So we want to make sure that we can meet their needs with COVID and that they have an option that they're comfortable with.
Okay, good deal. So I think this is great in the ideal of being able to do this. So you all are, I guess what I'm trying to figure out, so you think that 1,000 is enough? Are you all just kind of limiting your number of students that would come into this, or you just believe this is the right size right now?
We don't want to limit it, especially with COVID. Under normal circumstances, we do have a cap and, we're okay with that. But with COVID, we don't want to cut anybody out. We're not sure that, 1,000 people will actually follow through and commit. So at this point, we think 1,000 can be okay. And I know that Tracy Webb had explained some things too, that if down the road, if we get into an issue maybe with over 1,000, due to the accountability that Dr. Kaufman talked about, we can probably address it in that way.
Okay, that makes sense. I just know I have a grandson up here in Springdale and visited with some parents, and I know parents are looking at a lot of different options now.
Yes, they are.
Especially in case of schools having to close or something, that they're looking for other reasonable options to go to virtually.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry, I was meaning to ask this earlier and I was trying to get back to the page. I think this is a great idea. I do see there's going to be a need for this going forward. I just wanted to be a little clearer on your budget, and just that this, I'm reading through and it says it's not going to have any impact, but just wanted to get just some more details on that just to make sure that I understand exactly what that's going to look like with the increased enrollment.
Okay, so in the past, we used Pearson online and blended learning teachers, which were quite a bit more expensive, at about $4,500 a student, and they were the full service option through Pearson. For this upcoming school year, we'll be using our own teachers through the Van Buren School District. And so Pearson, due to the COVID pandemic, Pearson has come out with some other options that other school districts are using as well across Arkansas. And it's their virtual school in a box where you can use your teachers, and you substantially saves you some money not using the Pearson teachers. So it gives us a few more options and helps with our budget.
Thank you, that answered my question.
A question to ADE, right quick. You know, as this, in their case, as the enrollment increases, does a, you know, even if it's virtue, will the per pupil expenditure follow the enrollment numbers?
Yes, it will follow the enrollment numbers. In fact, most of these 1,000 students are our district students. You know, in the past, we've been able to enroll students from other districts, you know, if they do the school choice and choice in. But at this point now, after May the 1st, this large increase in enrollment are actually our in-district students. Mm-hmm. So that frees up teachers that would normally be in the classrooms now that we have that do not have classrooms of students because we have so many that are interested in the virtual school. So basically, we're still serving that same group of students with our own teachers. It's just that we're serving them virtually rather than serving them, you know, face to face inside the building. So really the funding is a wash because basically we're not upstaffing more teachers. We're using our existing teachers because these 1,000 students are our students from our district currently.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the request as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Baldwin and a second by Ms. Wright McMurray to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, Ms. Webb, number 3, please.
Item number 3 is an proposed open enrollment charter application from Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy. They plan to have a school in the Little Rock area and serve 600 students in grades 7 through 12. Dr. Anthony Bland and his team are on Zoom to present their application.
Mr. Bland, if your team will stand and raise their right hand.
Yes, ma'am.
And do we have anyone speaking in opposition? No. Okay. All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
I need to hear from everyone, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Hott?
Before we get started, I thought I would go over the hearing procedure for the benefit of those that were not here yesterday. Of course, we'll swear in before we get going. The applicant will then have 20 minutes to give their presentation. No one has signed up in opposition, so you can move straight into the 5 minutes of additional time. Following that, we will address all of the remaining legal issues as well as the waiver issues. Following that, we will address any remaining issues that are financial or any other division within the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. And then there's time for you to ask general questions. Of course, you may engage in discussion and ask questions at any time throughout the presentation and the subsequent pieces.
Dr. Bland, your team will have 20 minutes, and as Ms. Hott has explained, and then there will be an additional 5 for any last remaining points, or you can just talk through the whole 25 minutes.
Okay. All right. Can I share my screen?
Yes, and would you please speak into the microphone and state, each person will need to state their name for the record.
Okay. Anthony Bland.
Sakasita Hunter White,
Jessica Heggie,
Mazil. Okay. We can't hear you, Mazil.
We can come back to him when he's ready to present, if you're the main presenter, Dr. Bland.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to share the screen here. All right, we come today, first of all, to introduce ourselves. We're in the process of wanting to open up a charter school on this Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy, Little Rock, Arkansas. We'll be creating the foundation of tomorrow's leaders through the performing arts. Sponsoring entity is our Dr. Anthony D. Bland Foundation, nonprofit organization that in the main focus is to support performing arts, literacy, cancer research, and education. The foundation has been a source of support for more than 250 nonprofit entities in literacy, performing arts, cancer research, and education. By providing help and support to youth throughout Arkansas in literacy, performing arts, and cancer research and education, many of them have went on to become outstanding citizens and leaders in their various communities. Our pursuit in establishing a performing arts high school will improve academic performance and support academic growth in Central Arkansas. It will also be a safe haven for students who normally would not have these opportunities like some of their peers. By educating students through the performing arts, we will substantiate the critical needs of this academic institution. Why Diamond Cut Performing Arts? According to the National Center for Education Statistics, the 4-year adjusted cohort graduation rate in the United States is 84.1% in the 2015-16 school year. While graduation rates have gradually increased since 2011, gaps based upon race persist, as represented by respective rates for whites, Hispanics, and African American students. Similarly, graduation rates of economically disadvantaged students fall 6.5 points below overall average from the same report. Arkansas posted an overall adjusted cohort graduation rate of 87% with less pronounced gaps, including white, Hispanic, and African American. This time, according to the ESSA, 2018-2019, none of the high schools in Central Arkansas scored above 80% on the ESSA exam. Our mission for Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy is to provide opportunities in the performing arts and enrich the lives of students academically and their lifelong ambition. The model that we've chosen for the Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy is to achieve a reduction in the dropout rate, provide an annual school improvement plan, maintain a thorough program of effective staff training, maintain a well-defined and effective communication system whereby parents have access to the Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy Advisory Board, pre-test, post-test students to document achievement and provide information needed to improve the academic system, provide a fundamental education enabling students to go into the higher education or career path of their choice, provide specialized programs such as ESL and special education services based on student needs, provide the needed remediation in skill areas of reading, math, writing, literacy, and other basic subjects utilizing the performing arts, motivate students to accept responsibility for their own education and become lifetime learners, employ highly qualified teachers. In our academic focus, we want to utilize show that we want to focus on learning rather than the teaching process. Diamond Cut Performing Arts will accomplish this through the performing arts, diagnostics, delivery, and data. Each classroom will have one teacher. All Arkansas State requirements for teacher-to-student ratio will be followed. Every class, a form of the performing arts will be utilized to teach students. We will also use two forms of strategy. Strategy number one, student-centered, two co-curricular activities, peer mentors, student council watch, privilege systems, parent-centered, B, faculty-centered, faculty advisors, team attendance meetings, good friend advisors, guided study, C, parent-centered, parent monitoring, parent communications, 3-week progress reports, daily progress reports. Also use strategy number two, which is the 7 habits of highly effective students. Concept first documented by Stephen Covey to train, guide, and teach students to lead. So this is going to be one of the major strategies we want to use and implement to our students to let them know that this is their path. This is a great opportunity for them to use these 7 habits of highly effective students in order to accomplish their goals. All right, before I let Ms. White begin, there was a couple of students that wanted to express their thoughts about the school, and so they made this video, just a couple of second video. All right, Ms. White.
All right. Hello to one. I am Consular Hunter White, or best known as Coach White. The next few slides that you will see are theater, dance, fine arts, art, music, and the technical theater departments. A curriculum map, basically, for those departments. And I'm a firm believer in the interdisciplinary nature of this academy because it necessitates the utilization of discipline-specific concepts and the unification of similar concepts across the arts and academic disciplines while integrating cross-curricular curriculum. I've been in performing and creative fine arts for over 20 years now. And so I have seen a large spectrum from the good to the bad to the ugly. But I think this program is something that is different and is something on the level of the pillar of programs that you see in larger states such as Texas and in New York. Performing arts / creative arts is an important means of stimulating creativity. In addition to that, it challenges students to use different perceptions about our world and about themselves. It's an exploration for students. With this particular school, this academy, we plan on expanding and encouraging our students, not just through academics, but through their creative process, through their cognitive thinking. A lot of students, when they've came in over the years, as I've been in this particular department, I've seen that they do not understand the creative process. And so that's been a big deal with not only getting them to understand it through music, through the arts, through performing and fine arts, but also how that correlates with their core classes as well, through geometry and even through French and other foreign languages and so on. DCPAA would have a strong foundation within an educational setting that would reflect multifaceted dimensions of the human experience. The establishment of Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy is based on providing a free and adequate educational experience, and inspire all forms of each student's creativity and creative process through successful academic and arts integration for all children here in Little Rock or Central Arkansas. In addition to that, this academy also serves as an opportunity for students/children to experience the arts and provide artistic stimulation in support of growth and development. DCPAA is an original and innovative academy with specified subjects within art, music, dance, and drama, each with its own program design that supports its artistic and discipline and aesthetic. You can go ahead through with the slides, Dr. Bland, because as we're going, this is just the slides here are basically the curriculum map setup for how the academy would basically initially start the curriculum in the performing arts area. As arts integration goes, if we even just base that off of the definition of arts integration, it is the instruction in which arts-related concepts and activities are infused with other academic areas. That is our sole goal here, to make sure that our students are receiving an abundance of learning that is engaging, that is accepting not only for them as a student, but also for the parents and our community. Also, in addition to that, and I just want to add this as well, that particular video, I mentioned to a few students about the fact of how would you feel about having a performing arts academy in Little Rock, Arkansas, and they were overjoyed. They're very intelligent students. They inspire, and they are our future. They're our future success for not only performing arts, but academics. I mean, this is something that in Central Arkansas, as a child growing up here in Arkansas, this is something that I would have dreamed of. And a lot of students still have that dream, and I'm hoping to have that opportunity to be able to show the interdisciplinary nature of Diamond Cut Performing Arts. I think that's all that I have. If we need more for 20, I got you.
All right. Counseling department. Our school counseling and student support department students are assigned to a guidance counselor based on the student's grade level and chosen performing arts area of concentration. Guidance counseling for social and emotional development. All required media available to each student. Health plans, full continuum of special education services is required by IDEA. Gifted and talented and alternative education provided through individualized instruction. Faculty with ESL or ELL certification, partnership with all surrounding public school districts to support academic growth and provide dyslexia awareness and services.
Yeah, what's the name? What's the lady's name at? Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
We're going to have our major focus on dyslexia and anti-bullying is two major components that we're wanting to.
I double booked a Zoom. I had a Zoom for them from 8 to 9.
Hello. But those are two major components that we were wanting to focus on as far as our special education program is dealing with the dyslexia and anti-bullying. All staff, Foundation and Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy will have a full background check completed prior to employment. Full-time campus director will serve as lead administrator for the Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy and will be held accountable by the executive director / superintendent of the Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy, as well as the Diamond Cut Performing Arts Academy Community Advisory Board. Professional development will be provided through the Arkansas Public School Resource. Okay. Our stakeholders encompasses our parents, our students, our staff, our community leaders. They all play an integral part of the school governance. Executive Director, Campus Director, and Assistant Campus Directors, with support from the Diamond Cup Performing Arts Academy Advisory Board, will develop Community Advisory Council for the following purposes. It's basically to give an overall view to help out with the growth of the school. Right, at this time, Jessica will talk to you about Braintree Properties. They will be the ones that help set up and talk about the overall construction and building of the school.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Bland. My name is Jessica Heggie. I am the Director of Design for Braintree Properties. I am an architect by trade, and I help charter schools get into their facilities. So we partner with most charter schools to either help them expand or start up new, and we will take care of all of their facility end of it so that they can focus on what is important for them, the academics and the operational end of their school. So we help with procuring all of the financing for them and helping them with capital. We will help them go out to the bond market in the end and get them long-term low interest financing to make sure that one of the most important things, their finances are in line, and get them really started on the right track. We have a lot of history in the space, and we know that really, really great schools can get into financial trouble, especially on the facility end of it. And so we're here to start them up in the right direction and help them succeed as much as we can, at least on the facility end. You can go to the next slide. So we have been in discussions with Dr. Bland and his team to procure a facility for them to open in the 2021 school year. We have developed a facility budget process, and how we do that is just to make sure that their lease number is never more than 20%. We like to shoot for much less than that. So we've developed a budget based off of their first year enrollment of 600 students. You can obviously see the breakdown here, but the bottom line is we're looking at purchasing an existing building, renovating that building, and having them a lease that is 18.6% of their lease to revenue percentage, which is great, especially as they expand, that percentage will go down. A timeline to get them open, which is obviously very important for them to open on time, is to have a MOU signed between our company and Dr. Bland's team in September of this year. Once we do that, we will get started right away with them to do our due diligence on the existing building, which we will see on the next slide, and we'll get into design and start construction in January. That will give us plenty of time to do all the renovation work and get it prepped for the next school year, as well as have the school move in and get situated before opening in August of 2021. This is the existing building that Dr. Bland and his team had found for their school, and it's and I'm going to murder the name here, Anytime Pizza Facility.
Pizza.
There
Yeah,
you go, Playtime Pizza. It's actually really great for a new school. It's got really nice big volumes. It has spaces that are very close to classroom sizes. So we have looked at pictures. Dr. Bland has walked the property, and we have identified it as a very viable option for them to be able to open 1 year from now. That is all I have, Dr. Bland, if you want to add some more.
Okay. No, I believe that's it. Once again, we truly want to thank you all for hearing what we have to propose here, and we're open for any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Dr. Bland. Ms. Hite? Dr. Bland, through this process, Ms. Hite will go through any legal issues or waivers. So at the appropriate time, she'll pause for your team to make comment.
So we have some pretty significant legal issues with this application. The first being, originally, there were a request for 20-plus waiver areas, and all of the waivers have been rescinded. So the charter applicant is requesting no waivers. Based on the application alone, waivers would be required for school elections, school board composition, term length meetings, virtual attendance, school board elections, alternative learning environment, superintendent licensure, principal licensure, teacher licensure, counseling licensure. And and none of those have been requested, and no responses were given on the legal review. So I don't know how we move forward from that, because the school cannot operate without the waivers in the way that is described in the application. And we haven't had an opportunity to negotiate what those waivers are because no responses were given on the legal review.
Dr. Bland, can you respond?
Yes, we're actually going to have an HR department that will hire individuals that are certified and licensed to operate in those positions. So we didn't desire any waivers because we were going to hire individuals that were certified to hold those positions. And we were going to follow every every law that is required by the state to have a school. So that's why we did not ask for any waivers, because we wanted to follow every legal aspect of the state.
So in order to operate as a charter school, number one, you would not have an elected school board. So just starting from the beginning, you would have to have waivers related to school board elections. Following that, most charter boards also meet at various times, have people that are board members that don't necessarily reside in Arkansas, have a different way of training their board members based on their model. So they would likely need waivers in that. The alternative learning environment would require them to have a separate building. It doesn't sound, based on what they've said, that they plan on having a separate building for that purpose. Based on what was in the application, the superintendent licensure and principal licensure and teacher licensure was not required in those positions as they exist in the application. Additionally, they have a really robust performing arts curriculum, which makes me wonder if they would need additional curriculum waivers in order to incorporate all of the performing arts pieces. There are other things like teacher fair dismissal, tests and leads, things that are typically waived by charter schools so that they can have at-will employment as opposed to teacher contracts. And originally in the application, there were waivers for all of the licensure pieces, business manager qualifications, school elections, the facilities manual, ALE, all of the board of director pieces, teacher salary, classified salary, personnel policies, grievance procedures, personnel policy committees, duty-free lunch, non-instructional duties, planning time, 6-hour instructional day, start date, and attendance, and additional areas also. So in my mind, I am a little concerned that we went from planning to operate with all of those waiver pieces to now planning to operate with no waivers in such a short amount of time. I think it would require a considerable amount of planning to be able to execute that. And I think it's not clear from the application, even in its final submission, that they can operate with no waivers.
Well, we have actually been in contact with staff that has been certified through the Department of Education here in Arkansas, as well as a contact through New York, who is a director for a particular charter school there as well. In addition to that, with the building and the ALE, the alternative learning environment, with that particular building on that back side, there is a smaller detachable level where we would be able to house an alternative learning environment as well. And with inside of the building, how it is set up, because I've been in the building many times, I have small children, but how the building is actually set up, it already has a lot of functionality for a school. So the remodeling process wouldn't be as extensive, but this is just kind of to put out what the initial plan is. And as far as with the performing arts here in Arkansas, I know there's not an actual a licensure necessarily for dance, but what they do is performing arts permit. And those are obtained through experience, and we do have other colleagues that are actually ready, that do have their license and are experienced in those necessary areas that were waived.
So I think if we want to continue, we're going to have to go through each of the waiver pieces and have the applicant explain how they're going to meet that, since that information was not included in the application or is inconsistent with what's in the application. And I'm happy to do that if you want to move forward.
Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Let me ask, so the way that it's being presented now is if we acted on it and voted to do this, they would start out in violation of state law because the waivers are not included in the final application. So we obviously can't do that. We shouldn't do that.
In order, I think, to move forward and have a legally compliant charter application, there would have to be waivers, even if it was just for the school board. There would have to be waivers, as they're not going to have an elected school board. So what we would need to do now is to walk through each of the waiver pieces to determine whether a waiver is necessary to move forward.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that, but it is going to be time consuming.
The
Next question,
application I
please.
looked at had the original waivers, I think, in it. The one that we're talking about now is a big change. I would almost prefer they go back and relook at this and have some time to think through the waivers they need versus ones they don't need, and come back with a new application rather than piecemeal it today.
Dr. Williams?
I agree with Mr. Baldwin, but also, did I see 8.6 for the lease on the property? 18.6% or something like that. Could you all verify that? Let me move my. Yeah, 18, at least the revenue percentage is 18.6. I will tell you that is high. And so my question, as part of that, does this include the fees to the company, to Braintree?
That is correct. This includes everything. So we would put all the capital up front and purchase the property for them, lease it back for a few years until their enrollment stabilized, and then they would go out to the bond market for long-term financing. The 18.6% is just on their first year student enrollment, and so it would go down considerably as their enrollment grows through the years.
What's your projection for year two?
I believe, is it an additional 100 students, Dr. Bland? 100 per year.
Mm-hmm. Because 12% is kind of what you shoot for, and if you include your maintenance in that, you're looking at maybe a total of 15. Anytime you get above 15, you're putting yourself at financial risk in doing this. So my concern would be on the lease percentage, which means we really would need to look very closely at their budget and their revenue to make sure that from the financial piece, whether this will work or not. So if I take the concerns there along with the concerns of the waiver, I think they may need to go back and maybe fine tune this application some. Thank you.
And there are some additional legal issues outside of the waivers, which I can move forward and address now if you'd like me to.
In addition to waivers?
Yes.
Yes, just for the record, I think it would be helpful to the applicant to hear all of that.
So I'll start with how it plans to provide dyslexia services. I was happy that they addressed it in the presentation, but a lot in the application they talked about addressing it through the RTI process, which is not consistent with the Arkansas dyslexia law. So I think it would be helpful if they could provide some additional information on how they plan to make sure they're in compliance with the screening requirements of the Arkansas dyslexia law.
Are those the final ones?
No, there are several others.
Okay. And it might be just helpful that we present notes to them so that if the panel decides that we want to send this back for further work, that they have that opportunity. And I believe, Ms. Webb, you might want to come and address what type of support has been provided to this applicant.
And I'll say, from the legal perspective, I did a full legal review, included all of these concerns and waiver feedback on the original waivers, and met one-on-one with Dr. Bland and went through what the legal concerns were and what I needed to see for them to be addressed. And then when the application was resubmitted, all of the waivers had been rescinded and these other pieces had not been addressed.
Tracy Webb, Charter Unit. So our process for all new applicants is first of all, they have to submit a letter of intent. From there, we kind of know what kind of training to set up. And so we do a training that involves all units at ADE, their pieces of curriculum, finance. From that point, the applicant develops their application, they submit that. The internal review committee, as well as the legal team, reviews those applications. We set up a one-on-one. In this instance, it was a Zoom meeting, and we reviewed all of those remaining concerns and questions with the applicant. They then can revise their application and resubmit, and they can also address legal concerns at that time as well.
Did you have any additional concerns as you reviewed the last
We
application?
do have a few from the internal review committee. The first one is salaries. Their salaries across the board are very high for a school with only 600 students. The second one was the lease purchase issue of $840,000 a year, which is $70,000 a month. I know she gave a different quote of 18, but just looking at foundation funding, because that's what they can spend on that. Everything else is pretty restricted, and it cannot be used for facilities. So it's really 20% of their foundation funding that would go toward the facility. They also have letters of support from 2 donors that are willing to pledge $1.5 million and $1 million. If there was a budget shortfall, we would definitely want additional information. Those letters don't look formal. There's no heading on them. So we would want additional information about those donors because that's such a significant amount. And the last thing, and which is pretty significant, they've calculated their revenue on 600 students, which is their enrollment cap. That's highly unlikely for any charter their first year. They've also stated in their application that they would be viable with only 120 students. Well, with that, that reduces the foundation funding from $4 million and some change down to $813,000. So that's a significant difference to be able to maintain your facility in your school.
Panel, any other questions, discussion?
No, just from hearing comments from Ms. Hyatt and Ms. Webb, and just we have some things we need to resolve. I just think we just need to give them an opportunity to take this back and do some additional work to address concerns before we have any more discussion.
Here's a comment also.
Yes, sir.
Before we make a motion. My concern is whether they would have enough time, I guess, for Ms. Webb. Do you all foresee, and Ms. Hyatt, do you all foresee being able to work out these details in a reasonable amount of time for them to stay on track to come back to us in a reasonable amount of time?
My personal opinion, and Tracy might have a different one, is that there's significant work that needs to be done thinking through how they're providing services to kids, because a lot of the waivers that were initially requested have to do with student services, how they're arranging their master schedule, how they're doing their planning time and things with teachers. That is not just a let's negotiate about waivers, it's more a big picture, how can you provide these services to kids? In addition, combining that conversation with a conversation about what is your funding actually going to look like, what can you afford to provide for kids, it becomes a much more complicated conversation, I think. And some of the legal concerns I didn't get to deal with their governing structure, curriculum, additional budget concerns from the legal side. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I don't know that it can get done in a month, which is the time we gave the previous applicant, the Ag STEM applicant, time to come back. Those issues were mostly resolved by the time they had their hearing, so it seemed feasible to give them a month to come back. These are really significant legal issues and budget issues that need to be resolved.
Okay, thank you. The reason I asked the question, I just wanted to get an idea of how realistic it is to even send them back. Because I'm at the point where there are so many things that just have not even having the basic waivers and so forth. There are just so many pieces here missing, and the budget is just way out of whack. I just would just be upfront. I'm not supportive of sending them back.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I think the concept is exciting. The putting it all together needs quite a bit of work, because I didn't hear enough about the curriculum and the requirements for graduation. That's huge. And I think yesterday, Dr. Williams really stated it well, is, you know, I need to hear about the finance and the curriculum. We have a concern about finance, and I haven't heard anything about the required curriculum. And what they've laid out is a beautiful plan for performing arts, but at the same time, we do have state requirements for graduation requirements, and these students would be held to that. So I'm ready for accept a motion.
I move to deny.
I'll second.
We have a motion to deny by Dr. Williams and a second by Mr. Baldwin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
And just a comment, to me, what the denial does now, it gives them another full year to get all these things worked out and to really come back. If we just would have, what's the word I'm looking for, tabled it, then it would have put them in a very crunch time to come back to us. And I don't just see there was any way to get all of these things worked out in this period of time. So this is, I don't view this as being totally negative. I view this as an opportunity now that they got another year to start working through these things. I think it would be great to have, I envision a Juilliard in Little Rock. So this is the right idea, just need to get the fundamentals done.
Bland, the panel will put some information into our voting sheets and respond to you verbally. And then, if so requested, our team is happy to share any of their notes with you as well.
Yep, we truly appreciate you all for your consideration, and we look forward to receiving those notes and that information to be able to resubmit at a later date.
Dr. Bland, I'll go ahead and start and let our other panel members complete their statements. But the reason I voted to deny this application is not because we don't see the vision. The vision that you have is exciting. It's the plan that needs to be worked on. And so the details are extremely important in starting up a new school. So the application is not complete. No waivers were requested. The curriculum for required graduation is not addressed. And those are, in my eyes, non-negotiables for getting started. So we wish the best for you.
I also
Now,
voted to deny the application. I think your concept is excellent, and I was excited as you all were talking because I can see that you believe in this and that you know that this will make a difference for kids. I think what needs to happen is make sure that you're financially viable, that you can make it financially. I think there's more work that needs to be done with that. And then also make sure that you're in compliance with state law and that waivers that are needed are requested and that you are working with ADE to comply with all the rules that they have, that they will enforce.
My vote was also against. Again, I fully support the idea and the concepts of what you guys have been working on, which is why initially I was leaning towards giving you a little bit more time to be able to address some of those concerns, but then after getting additional information that it would not have been fair to you to ask you to come back in such a short period of time to do those things. Definitely want to see this work take place over the next year, working with our agency and other partners to strengthen up your application so that when you come back, you'll have a better chance of it being approved.
Dr. Williams?
Yes, thank you. The application is not complete. Waivers, curriculum, and budget concerns all need additional work. It's the reason I voted to deny, but I agree with others. I think this would be an excellent school to have in the Little Rock area. There's some renovation work going on the Arts Center. It could be a major part of an arts culture piece there in the Little Rock area. And I agree with Mr. Baldwin. I can hear your passion when you talk about it. Just a note, I've been on the panel for a while in the state board and looking at these charter schools. Charter schools fail because of the fundamentals, the financial piece. We have great teachers who start charter schools. In the early years, they didn't work. It wasn't because of the teaching. It was because of the business model behind them. So if you get those pieces worked, I think you all have the right people to take care of the performing arts part of it. Thank you.
Dr. Bland?
Yes.
15-minute recess? Dr. Bland, if you'll stop sharing your screen, that'll be appreciated. The panel's going to take a 15-minute recess and we'll be back. Ms. Timmons, let's go ahead and check your microphone and make sure everything's working. And do you have your full team on? Ms. Timmons? We'll give them a few more minutes.
Good morning. I'm here. We were having issues with the link, so we are, the rest of the team will be joining shortly.
Timmons, if you'll just tell us when your team is ready, we'll get started.
I sure will. Thank you. Good morning.
Hello, this is Representative Lowry.
Good morning, Representative Lowry. We're waiting just for a few more members of the West Wind School for Performing Arts, and then we'll be ready to begin.
Okay. And Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin is also calling in.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think the entire team is here.
Thank you, Ms.
Yes.
Timmons. Ms.
Thank
Webb,
you.
if you'll introduce the next item, please.
Yes, ma'am. The Westwind School of Performing Arts is a proposed open enrollment charter school that would be located in North Little Rock, Arkansas. The school plans to serve 150 students in grades 6 through 8. We have today Ms. Teresa Timmons, Mr. Chris Bell, and Mr. Brent Elliott to present the application. We also have Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin and State Representative Mark Lowry to speak on their behalf.
Good morning. Lieutenant Governor, you're recognized to speak.
Good morning. Thank you all for having me. I know this is a different way of doing things, and I appreciate all that y'all are doing to make to let the business continue even in these challenging times. Look, everybody who knows me knows how I feel about charter schools and school choice. I've always been an advocate for giving parents like myself and many other parents choice, not only among traditional public schools, but beyond traditional public schools, charter schools. I'm a big advocate for charter schools. And parents, in my view, know best what their kids need. And this is an opportunity with the Wynwood School to teach children 6th through 8th grade in a little different way with an arts focus. Research has shown that an arts focus in education stimulates and helps the brain develop in different ways than without an arts education. And an arts education particularly is good for encouraging and spawning creativity and teaching creativity. And, you know, there are a lot of parents out there that believe or may find out that an arts education is precisely what their child needs. And by allowing this charter school to stand up, you are simply giving more choices to parents, giving more opportunities to students. The Timmons Art Foundation, you've got all this in front of you, has a history of teaching and working with young people and helping them be all that they can be. And I would mention a couple of things in particular. Number one, the Timmons Art Foundation historically, and I believe in this particular instance, is very concerned with students from all socioeconomic backgrounds, and particularly those who may be economically disadvantaged. They are seeking those students in particular because they want to provide an education to kids that otherwise may not have access to an arts education. And I think that is critically important. And, you know, there are a lot of parents. I've got 3 young kids. I've got a 13-year-old, I've got a 10-year-old, and I've got a 2-year-old, believe it or not a grandchild, but my child. And she's not in school yet. And I practice school choice every single day. I am able to do that. I'm financially able to do that. I have a daughter in private school and a son in public school. Not everybody can do that. And I want everybody to have that option. I want parents to have access to the amazing arts education that this school can provide. So I just wanted to weigh in and say, this is all upside. And the beauty of the charter system is we're not only giving alternatives to other sorts of schools. Charters are an alternative to traditional public schools, private school, homeschools, etc. We're not only doing that, within the charter world, there are different sorts of charters with this one may have a focus on STEM and this one on arts. That diversity benefits us all. And I'll also say the beauty, and you know all this, the beauty of the charter system is you are able to innovate with leaders like Timmons Art Foundation and hold them accountable. And we're able to help these sorts of schools flourish because there's accountability in this system in a way that there isn't with some other public schools. So put me down as a yes. I support this, and I hope that y'all approve this. Thank y'all so much for your time and for dealing with this awkward, weird, through the home, dogs running in the hall situation. But I appreciate what you do, and thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
We
you, Lieutenant
appreciate
Governor.
you speaking on behalf of this charter.
Thank you.
Representative Lowry?
Yes, thank you very much for allowing me to call in. Lieutenant Governor Griffin covered the background of this application very well. The one thing that I would say is that, you know, the Maumelle area, which I represent, has been proud of our tradition of embracing charter schools. You may know that the very first charter school in the state of Arkansas was the Academics Plus Charter School, which is now known as Maumelle Charter, and they're a straight A school. And the Timmons family has been very active in our community and very supportive of that effort. And so we're glad to see that branching out. And one thing, let me just tell you about my working with the Timmons family. Every time, and this is the Timmons Arts Foundation, this is Timmons who, of course, I've worked with Teresa Timmons when she received an award from the governor for the work of the Arts Foundation, but I've also worked with Timmons who has been a city council member, has just, every time we have needed her in our community to step up, she's done that. And I know that the family will, and the Arts Foundation will have the same kind of energy in terms of supporting this endeavor. You know, I was involved in arts through high school and college, and have also seen all the research that the Lieutenant Governor referenced. The main thing is it keeps students engaged. Those who have that interest, whether it is performing arts, visual arts, it keeps them engaged in all their other academic areas as well. And the facility that this particular charter school is hoping to go into is an amazing facility in the Crystal Hill area, something that will really trigger a great interest by the students. It started out as a piano gallery, performing arts center, and has had other occupants there. And so we're really excited about this opportunity. The family has shown great ingenuity and entrepreneurship in terms of just everything that they have engaged in the community. And we also know their heart for kids. And I think the issue, you know, I was looking at the information in the application. I know that they also embrace the ideas that the Lieutenant Governor referenced, of being able to give children and their families choice, apparently, especially their parents. You know, that is the thing that really invigorates the charter school process. I've served on the education committee in my 4 terms in office. And I remember one of the conversations that I have had with Charles Armstrong. He used to be on the education committee and in the legislature, and he's also a Little Rock School Board member. And every time there was a discussion about charter schools and about whether charter schools had an unfair advantage over traditional public schools, Charles would always lean into me and he would say, the one thing charter schools have an advantage on, and frankly, if the public schools could embrace it more, would be parent participation. And that is exactly the essence of any charter school. And I think it's especially going to be true with this particular application, where parents are going to be engaged. They're going to be encouraged to be engaged, to be there for performances, to be there anytime the students maybe have to have extended practice times, you know, beyond the school hour, that the parents are going to be a very active participant in that. And so I just wholeheartedly endorse this application. Hope that you will give it its full consideration, and that you would ultimately vote to allow this charter to move forward. So thank you very much for allowing me to call in and moving us ahead of your other testimonies so that we could participate.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your thoughtful words regarding this charter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hyatt, if you will come and outline our proceedings today.
Good morning, Mary Claire Hyatt, Arkansas Department of Education. We will begin by swearing in all of those that anticipate giving testimony today, with the exception of attorneys. Following that, the applicant will have 20 minutes to present. I don't believe anyone has signed up to speak in opposition. No one has signed up to speak in opposition, so they can either use 25 minutes or 20 and then 5 if they want. Following that, we will move into a discussion of the waivers and clearing up any remaining legal issues. Then we'll move into discussing any financial or other issues that have been noted by the Internal Review Committee. We'll end kind of discussing and asking general questions. Of course, as I've said many times, please ask questions as we move forward anytime that you have them, of us or of the applicant.
Ms. Hyatt, if all of the persons speaking in favor of this application and anyone speaking in opposition, I don't believe there is anyone, but if anyone speaking in favor of this application would stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I do.
I do.
Thank you. I've acknowledged all of those.
Excuse me, we have 2 other speakers that are here speaking on behalf of the foundation as well. Is it possible to allow them some time?
Yes, I didn't see them. Who are they?
We have Ms. Janet Perkins with the Arkansas Arts Council and Ms. Adora Curry, who is a parent.
And are they part of your 20-minute presentation?
They are not. They were listed to be speaking on behalf of the foundation prior to, with Lieutenant Governor and Representative Lowry.
Okay. All right. Let's start with Ms. Perkins, please.
Good morning. My name is Janet Perkins. I'm on the staff of the Arkansas Arts Council. I'm Community Development Program Manager. I was very glad when Teresa called and requested that I be a part of this discussion. I met the Timmons Arts Foundation 2 years. I started the Arts Council in 2011, and they had already been in business for a number of years, but that was one of the first organizations when I started that I had an opportunity to meet and engage, and also to be able to witness the work that they're doing with children in this community. The main thing that I am so impressed with is the exposure that the Timmons Arts Foundation, they're able to give to young people. They provide all kinds of educational opportunities, creative opportunities, whether it's music, fashion design, whether it's learning how to play an instrument. They pull on every aspect of the artistic community to be able to provide the young people in their organization, those that are participating. I have watched the organization grow over the years that I have been in connection with the Timmons Arts Foundation. And I am always, always so glad to see just what they're able to do with a large number of young people, giving them those opportunities. And I have never been in one situation where where the young people are performing that you see any discipline problems, or you're seeing Teresa and the others that work with her having to take any kind of extreme efforts to make sure that the kids are doing what they need to. I also recognize that there is a level of just joy that I have seen within these kids, that they're being able to learn different things and to perform and to be in front of the public doing things. So I am 100% for this organization having a performing arts school. I think that we all know, I don't have to repeat anything that has been said. We all know what art can do for young people, to be able to expand their abilities and their horizons. That kind of exposure you cannot even pay for. So I just commend the Timmons Arts Foundation for all they do and how they are continuously expanding that agenda to make sure that young people get the very best. They don't give them seconds, they give them the very best of what's out there. So I am 100% for this organization. And thank you for the opportunity for me to give my testimony about Timmons Arts Foundation.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Ms. Curry?
Good morning. My name is Adora Curry. I reside in Little Rock, Arkansas. My testimony is a little bit more personal, so forgive me if I sound a little emotional. I am obviously an African American. I'm a mom raising 2 boys. I have 2 degrees. I have a full-time job, and I'm very professional. And I would start my testimony with that because I'm a single mom. And because I'm a single mom raising 2 young Black boys, that stigma falls upon my children. A lot of times, well, obviously unfairly, but also a lot of times without people having the opportunity to get to know them. And so begins my story with my relationship with the Timmons Arts Foundation and why it is critical and definitely one of the solutions to ending systemic racism that's going on in our nation. They're an example that's already been doing that. My kids go to attend LRSD schools right now. We have Fulbright Elementary School, and we were at Pinnacle View. Whenever I went to a parent-teacher conference, the first questions asked were, is there a father at home? Or I would get calls about behavior that were more of a distraction in getting to know my kid as opposed to like a all-out behavior problem. Like, he wasn't a bad child per se, but it was always viewed that way, and there was always never any patience. And so the first 2 years for my son, kindergarten and first grade, you know, dropping him off at school, we did that like feeling like we were walking on eggshells, and we didn't know if we would get through the day without somebody calling to complain. And I'm sure you can imagine, not only as a parent and a single mom trying to do her job, but what that does for the self-esteem of a 6-year-old and then a 7-year-old, where he's going to school every day feeling like his teachers don't like him, like his teachers might be talking to other parents and encouraging their children not to play with him. And then we get the opportunity in the summertime to participate in the Timmons Arts Foundation. And as a mom, it made a world of difference for my son because it boosted his self-esteem. He was somewhere where he was valued, where he was appreciated, where people took the time to recognize his talents and to encourage him. He discovered his love for singing. He's the only person in our family that can sing. He was in a loving and nurturing environment, and he was also around people who look like him, both male and female, that look like him, and representation matters. Whenever the camps were over in the summertime, we were so sad because we wanted more. We wanted to continue to put him in environments that would fill his cup. And we could not wait from August till June for him to go back to the Timmons Arts Foundation, where he could get that extension of love beyond our household. But in those months, those 9 months in between, whether it was at the grocery store, whether we were going to a social event somewhere else, if he ran into an instructor or a volunteer from the Timmons Arts Foundation, they always automatically brought him back into the fold. I remember one time my son saw Corto at Walmart, and he left the checkout line to go give him a hug. Another time we attended an event downtown in Little Rock, I think, a Juneteenth celebration, and Miss Teresa and some of the other students from the Timmons Arts Foundation were performing, and they saw my son in the crowd, and even though he wasn't a part of the performance, they went and pulled him and brought him to the front row so that he could be a part of the family with them. Every child, especially children of color, deserve to have that type of experience, and to feel like they're a part of a family, and to feel like they matter and they value. And this organization has been doing that since day one.
Thank you, Ms. Curry.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much.
Is that the end of mine? I can stop there, but it's critical to have an organization that's already established, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. Or, you know, they're setting the example, and they've been doing that. And I just, every child deserves that, especially in the times that we're living in right now.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Timmons, you have 20 minutes.
Yes. Okay. I am going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, good. I think it's morning. Good morning, everyone. I am Teresa Timmons, founder of the Timmons Arts Foundation. We are the sponsoring entity for Westwind School for Performing Arts, the proposed open enrollment charter school. First, I'd like to thank Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, State Representative Mark Lowry, Ms. Janet Perkins, and Adora Curry for your kind words. We truly appreciate your support this morning. I'd also like to thank the Charter Authorizing panel for hearing our application today. I would also like to introduce our team, Ms. Jen Connor, who currently works for our National Out of School Time Network and has been leading the curriculum development for this application, as well as Chris Bell and Brent Elliott for SBA. They are our financial team. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a product of the arts. I was a dancer and a flutist. I competed across the state. I began my higher education at the University of Cincinnati, where I danced. I began dancing for an up-and-coming artist and traveling across the country as her background dancer. I later moved to Little Rock, and in between time, I enlisted in the military, where I served during Operation Iraqi Freedom as a gun truck commander, leading over 60 soldiers in war. I also worked as a juvenile probation officer, and my personal mission in that job was to redirect our youth through the arts. In every field that I've worked, I've always incorporated the arts in some way. My experiences in the arts include producing shows and events featured on local and national platforms. I've produced shows at New York Fashion Week, LA Fashion Week. I'm the founder and executive producer of Designer's Choice Fashion Preview, Little Rock's largest event, which has been a staple in the community for over 12 years, supporting local designers, local artists, local visual artists, and local entertainment. I'm also the EP for Designer's Choice Fashion Preview Dallas. Through our community partnerships, I've had the opportunity to facilitate the Jazz at Lincoln Center's pilot program for the state of Arkansas, which is how I met Jen. But my mission during this time my mission began during a mentorship program I participated in while at UALR. It was then that I realized that I wanted students to have the very same opportunities that I had growing up in the arts. So a little bit about the sponsoring entity. The Timmons Arts Foundation, the 501c nonprofit, has with the mission to educate, enrich, and empower our children through the arts. I realized that there was a need for the foundation while in college, mentoring to students in select Title I schools. After meeting and talking with schools and principals and counselors of these schools, I quickly began to understand that the desire to provide arts and education in these schools to students were there, but the budget, time, and resources were not. And that's why the Timmons Arts Foundation was started. Our initial impact in the community began by providing art supplies, musical instruments, and funding to Title I schools. We were able to do this through partnerships, collaboration, and fundraising events hosted by the foundation. Next, we began creating arts program for our youth, specifically for children from underserved communities. Cultivating the Arts Youth Summer Camp was our first program. It's a 4-week arts intensive program that focuses on 6 components of art: vocal music, visual art, fashion, dance, instrumental music, drama, and theater. The camp is student-driven and student-voiced, and they are involved in every area from the creation of a production to their final musical performance, which is held at the end of the program. In 2018, the Timmons Arts Foundation created the Timmons Arts Foundation Choir, where students performed on large platforms like the Arkansas Black Hall of Fame. They performed at MLK events, and most recently, through our partnership with the University of Arkansas Pulaski Technical College, our choir was able to sing with the legendary Mississippi Mass Choir. And because of our partnerships and supporters like Steve Landers, our students also had the opportunity to appear in a Steve Landers Auto Group commercial, That's What Steve Said. We strongly believe that students cannot be what they do not see. And through our partnerships and relationships, our students have been exposed in a local and national performing arts community, singing with legendary choirs, appearing in commercials, having the opportunity to meet and talk with professionals, like, for example, in this picture there with Tamar Braxton. She's a singer and actress. She actually flew to Arkansas to do a workshop and a community service project with our students. They've also had the opportunity to meet with actors like Morris Chestnut, Lorenz Tate, Boris Kojo, and so many more performing art professionals. Making those connections is a part of the Westwood mission. The mission is to provide an equitable and engaging educational experience that is enhanced by the arts. We believe that by establishing strong connections between students and the performing arts community, students will embrace the belief that learning is a creative and enlightening process. So why arts-infused learning? It's important to us that students have a well-rounded education. Some students simply learn differently, and integrating the arts within their core disciplines reaches those students who might not otherwise understand or be engaged in their classwork. Also, studies have shown that infusing arts in students' curriculum develops creative problem-solving skills, helps with motor skills, mathematics, critical thinking, and even their social skills. But from our experience, it also creates a better student and a better human being. So meet Michael. I'm going to protect this young man's name and image. This is not a true image of the student or his name, but I am going to tell his story. So Michael was a student in our after-school program. He was a really sweet kid, but he had walked with his head down, showed signs of having low self-esteem. We had concerns with his literacy and comprehension, and his behavior needed to be adjusted. At the end of each school year, the kids perform a musical. That particular year, Lion King was our musical. It was Michael's favorite production. He came to me and told me that he loved Lion King, and specifically he loved the character Rafiki. So I suggested he audition for the musical. He instantly told me no. On audition day, I went and found Michael, and I had him audition for Rafiki. He struggled reading his lines, and as we anticipated he would, but we casted Michael as Rafiki. During rehearsals, Michael would come to me when he had issues reading or comprehending his lines, and I would help him out. But after a while, I realized that Michael stopped coming to me for assistance. And then I noticed him in the hallways with he and his castmates laughing, talking, he's projecting his voice, head held high, they're laughing. And later I would see them all together at table reads before I even arrived at the program. So fast forward to the day of the performance, all of the kids did amazing in the musical. Michael was amazing, the entire cast was amazing. After the performance, Michael came to me crying. He was so excited that this experience, that he was able to participate in this experience. This was life-changing for him, I believe. He went from an intimidated young man that walked with his head down to a thespian, ready for the next production. Also, his grades improved. Now you can catch Michael at our after-school program, helping others, because now he is a student worker. So you've heard a little bit about the arts, and now you'll meet Ms. Jen Connor, who will talk to you about academics and curriculum.
Thanks, Teresa. Apologize if my video is a bit glitchy, but a series of storms have knocked out the power where we are. So I'm going to be doing a lot just speaking through my phone. But as Teresa mentioned, I've worked with her on the development of West Wind's proposed curriculum. I am a certified Pennsylvania educator, having taught both social studies for high school and middle school and special education. As a teacher, I was a founding staff member of 2 innovative schools that were designed to bring alternative approaches to high school to help students who would typically struggle in more traditional settings. In addition to teaching, I've also worked as a special education supervisor, an instructional coach, and an assistant principal. I currently work for a national nonprofit organization where I am a professional education trainer on behalf of the U.S. Department of Education. I have written curriculum for the Jazz at Lincoln Center's after-school programs, and I'm a consultant on curriculum for organizations such as the C.S. Mott Foundation and National Geographic. And so Teresa's and my background have been a true fusing of our experience, of what our experience has told us really works well for all students. That fusing has led to 5 essential elements that are comprised or made up of the West Wind's mission. So some phrases that I've asked you to keep in mind as I talk through the curriculum pieces are equitable, art-infused, academically rigorous, interconnected, creativity, and enlightenment. Every decision we've made around curriculum, schedule, structure is all designed to make sure that we are continually meeting those essential elements. The curriculum that we'll be using is going to be pulled from curriculum that's already been approved by the Arkansas State Department of Education. And that's to ensure that we are working with the highest quality, most academically rigorous curriculum. We'll be taking these existing curriculum and reconfiguring them in a new and novel way, which I'll talk about in a few moments. In addition to those, we'll also be using some supporting resources from the Institute for Arts Integration and STEAM curriculum, which has curriculum and professional development around taking arts-infused lessons and carrying them across content areas. So you can be working on one art theme in math, science, ELA, and history, which is phenomenal because those connections often aren't observed and pushed in a traditional school day. The second supporting resource is EduCurious, which is a project-based learning curriculum that really empowers students to take control over their own learning, as well as connecting what they're currently doing to experts, so that students can see what I'm doing today can lead me to potential career paths. So how will this look in the school day? If we start by thinking about a traditional model, we think that, or we see that daily lessons tend to happen in a ladder or stair method. So we model something for the students, we guide them, they practice a little bit, and then we expect students to master and demonstrate that. This can happen over a couple days, but it more than typically happens one skill a day and can move pretty quickly. While this does work with some students, especially those with strong working memories, this actually isn't how our brains operate or are designed to learn. So at West Wind, we want to do something a little bit different that better matches how students do learn and how their brains come to us primed, ready to engage in material. So let's look at our units. Our units are something that we're going to call acts. So the acts are different in the sense that they'll be spiraled. So this means that you engage students in a concept or a skill, then you have them practice it while working together in a group, then they're coming back and they're working independently, and then they're moving again into working in a group and back. So it's several skills and concepts that students continually work with as they move deeper and deeper into the understanding. This lets students continue to practice and manipulate skills and content that they may have initially struggled with. As well as this process of the spiral, we're also going to be dissecting it into 3 arts areas. So students will practice. This is where they will learn and plan. They will then rehearse, which is our group time, and then they'll perform. So in the performance is where they'll take everything they learned and they'll have to demonstrate through an arts-based work product a really high quality item that not only demonstrates how students have mastered the academic content, but also how that they've mastered an arts product that's connected to the real world. So everything students do every single day could be turned into a portfolio and turned around to use to get into college or start a career. In addition to how this will look within a class, we're also going to do some spiraling across content areas. So when we think about how the spiraling works, right, we're thinking about taking one concept and repeating it sort of over and over and over again in a new, unique way that moves the students forward. Oftentimes we do this through project-based learning, but for students that puts both the skill of the product itself, so something like a multimedia presentation or an essay, with the content. And we expect students to know how to do the product while we're teaching the content. So when they complete a project at the end, it often doesn't reflect what they've actually mastered because they didn't have the skills necessary to demonstrate their mastery of the academic content. So what we're going to do is we're going to spiral across the classes. So the students will use their art elective classes to learn how to create those art products in a really fun, engaging way. And then the core content teachers will use those same art products to have students demonstrate the mastery of the core concepts. This means that we're really able to develop a truly wholly centered child vision that revolves around the art. So in the next slide, you're going to see our graphic to sort of represent this idea. We're going to infuse arts in everything, but we're going to make sure that students are not only getting their core academic information, but they're also learning the what and why behind what they're doing so that they can learn how to self-advocate. And we're going to help them develop the skills around executive functioning, social and emotional learning. So when we're asking them to collaborate, to work through something that may feel overwhelming initially, they have the skills to rely upon to push them through. So what will this look like for just a day in the life of a student? So on the next slide, you'll see a series of events that will take place throughout the day. So our day will start with Advisory 1. This is where students will have an opportunity to check in with themselves, think about their emotional status, where they're at, what they need, prep for the day, ask for support or assistance. They'll then move into core content. They'll have lunch, followed by Advisory 2, where we'll explicitly teach those collaboration and executive functioning skills that students need throughout all of their classes. In the afternoon, then they'll have their Science of Learning elective. That's that place where we're going to teach students about learning. How do their brains work, and how can they figure out what works best for them? Followed by their arts electives, where they really get some amazing hands-on experience in producing art work. Teresa and the Timmons Foundation already has a phenomenal network, and so for the arts elective, we're going to be able to use a combination of traditional educators and real working artists. So again, bringing to the forefront for students that everything they're doing every day is not just because the teacher asked them or told them to, it's because it's setting them up for success and options in life. And this is all going to happen at an amazing facility, which Teresa will walk you through.
Thank you, Jen. So the proposed school sits on 17 acres of land with a beautiful tree line and pond where students will have access to enjoy. This also provides teachers the opportunity to create outside learning environments for students, and the school itself is 36,000 square feet with a covered entrance. There's a gated courtyard which also provides students a safe space to eat, study, and bond with other students. There are classrooms for our children, for our students. There's a state-of-the-art theater that holds 267 people. It has full access. There's a bistro where students will have breakfast and lunch and also be able to gather during their downtime, as well as a commercial kitchen. So, student services. For transportation, we are committed to provide transportation for students with pickup and drop-off points. We've allocated 1 bus and 1 bus driver for year 1, and will allocate more as enrollment increases. For health services, West One will staff a full-time nurse to ensure the health and well-being of students, and will implement the health services program. A waiver has been requested in this area to have the ability to staff a licensed nurse who may not be registered. For guidance counseling, West One will staff a guidance counselor. We have requested a waiver in this area on employing a certified guidance counselor, but will have the comprehensive school counseling plan set forth in Act 190 of 2019. For the Media Center, the students will have access to Chromebooks, classroom libraries, and weekly visits to the public library. For special ed, the school will employ a full-time special education teacher to meet the students' needs. Dyslexia, students will also have, we will have a special education teacher who is certified in this area. For ELL, standard assessments will be completed to determine the appropriate needs. However, we will staff a part-time ELL teacher. For gifted and talented, students will be served through the increased academic rigor in their core classes, along with enrichment opportunities in performance and fine arts. And for our curriculum, we request no waivers in this area. Recruitment. Our team will work with a local multicultural marketing firm to launch a comprehensive communication campaign that targets various communities. The preferred mediums will include what's listed here: social media, digital display ads, direct mail, cable, mobile ads, and direct phone calls. Also, through our programming and partnerships, the Timmons Arts Foundation reaches over 500 students a year. We will also create a campaign to recruit these students that are already participating in our existing programs. Westwood will also ensure that the citizens of Pulaski County and the 3 districts from which the school will pull have an equal opportunity to learn about and apply to the school through recruitment the recruitment plan. We've also met with Dr. McNulty, the superintendent of Pulaski County Special School District, as well as Rod McGill of Maumelle Charter. They both were very receptive of the new charter. Rod McGill said that he has a wait list of over 500 students, and would let the parents on his wait list know of the availability of the school. So to support an effective partnership between our school and the families of our students, we'll implement a research-based school, family, and community partnership model. These consist of parenting, will provide workshops through communicating, we'll create a parent and teacher committee that will host meetings, which will be open to all family members. Volunteering, family members will have the opportunity to volunteer within the school. Learning at home, West One will provide adequate technology to ensure seamless coordination of schoolwork with work at home. If full-time virtual instruction is needed, West One will work with the APSRC to provide different at-home learning programs. Decision-making, the parent and teacher committee will allow parents, families, and teachers to maintain open communications and better understanding of one another. And collaborating with community, pretty much what we do now, we'll create a series of partnerships in the community to extend and expand our services. So the governance and human capital. West Wind will establish a school board that is separate from the sponsoring entity, which is the Timmons Arts Foundation. A full-time director will be hired by the school board and will report directly to the school board. The school will then staff a full-time principal to report to the executive director. The principal and the executive director will hire staffing, and the staffing will be trained through professional development provided by the APSRC. So this is just a quick budget for year 1 and year 2. Our revenue is 1.3. Our expenditures are 1.348, and our net revenue for the first year is $21,208, and for year 2 is $74,477. that concludes our presentation for today. We'd like to thank you all again for taking the time to hear this application.
Thank you, Ms. Timmons.
You.
Ms. Hott?
Some of the things I had written down, she actually covered in the presentation, so I'll just note it as we move forward. The first thing, I think it would be helpful to have a little bit more information about is the governing structure, and I know that Teresa just talked about it, but there's been some changes since the original application, so just to clarify, the Timmons Art Foundation will be the governing, sponsoring entity. There will be a local school board, and the executive director will not be related to anyone that's on any of the boards. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Perfect. The next thing, just to kind of address, has to do with the building that's going to be leased. So the building, which was a beautiful building, by the way, I really liked seeing pictures of it.
Thank you.
Is going to be purchased by Team Summit LLC, and that is someone who is part of the Timmons family. So they would be leasing the building from a family member owned business. It's not necessarily prohibited, but I just want to confirm they're aware that they'll have to meet the requirements of 624-101 SEC that requires those contracts to be approved by the Commissioner of Education.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Yes, Tripp, you're recognized.
Thank you. Tripp Walter, Staff Attorney, Arkansas Public School Resource Center. I will confirm on behalf of West Wind that the applicant is aware of that. And just to let the panel and Ms. Hyatt be aware, their plans, if needed, to divide the space so there won't be any overlap between the Timmons Arts Foundation space, or the space that's controlled by them for the program, and what will be controlled by the school. And the lease will be entered into by the school board, which has been mentioned as separate from the sponsoring entity board. And the applicant will ensure that fair market value is paid for the lease amount.
Perfect.
So that's going to be, it will be a single-use facility.
I believe that, and Tripp can correct me, I believe the idea is that part of the facility will be used by the Timmons Art Foundation for their programs, and part of the facility will be used for the charter school. Is that correct?
That's correct from my view. I don't know if Ms. Timmons has anything to add to that.
No, that is correct.
And I think as long as the proper approvals are granted, and I'm glad that the assurance was made that the lease will be between the school board and the entity rather than the sponsoring entity board, because we've run into issues in the past with that. So as long as it's set up how they have confirmed that it's set up, I don't think there should be any issue.
So let me ask, those approvals really are outside of our decisioning here?
That's correct. They get submitted through the legal office, and we review them there are certain criteria laid out in law about how you can enter into essentially a conflict of interest contract. So if a board member or an administrator or employee is related to someone who's benefiting from the contract, so we review them, we look at the limited circumstances under which we can approve them, and then make a recommendation to Secretary Key, who gives final approval.
Just to follow up on that question, what is the relationship? I know that we have the Timmons Foundation as a sponsoring entity. So what would be their responsibility to the school, if any? And also that would lead me to what would be their relationship with the board of the school? Are they appointing any board members, or the board members elected by the parents? What's the wall between the two organizations from a governance standpoint?
I can go ahead and address that. The Timmons Arts Foundation board is separate. It is the sponsoring entity. The only The only interaction I see other than just being the sponsoring entity that it will have with the school and its board is the application indicates that the Timmons Arts Foundation will select the chair of the board, and then the chair of the board will be responsible for selecting the remaining 4 members of the board. But there is no reporting from the chair, no supervisory control or authority of the school board by the Timmons Arts Foundation board.
Okay. Now, repeat I missed the part about the chair. Are they selecting the chair of the school board?
Yes.
Okay. And then that chair is the one that's going to be working to select the other members of the board of the school?
The initial board, yes, sir.
Is it a self-perpetuating board?
Yes. Yes, sir. It will be self-perpetuating after that. There'll be no further involvement between the foundation and the school board other than what I've just mentioned.
Okay.
Also,
and who will select the chair from that point on if it's self-perpetuating? Will the Timmons, will the foundation still select the chair?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, it took us a while, but we got there. That's why I wanted to find out when is the train is unhooked.
Yes, sir. That's when.
Good deal. Okay. Thank you.
And I'll point out, Dr. Williams, just for clarity, lots of sponsoring entities do place members on the local school board because the sponsoring entity ultimately is responsible for the school. And when the school wraps up and closes, the sponsoring entity is the organization that has all of the duties to maintain records and the financial duties and things like that. So it is common for them to appoint members to the local school board. This is not, that's not unusual.
Totally agree with that. I have seen a case where the sponsoring entity board was doing some things that the school board itself was not aware of. And that became an issue.
Absolutely.
If I may also add.
Madam Chair, this is Scott. Yeah, if I could just assure the board member or the panel member, the link is broken between the sponsoring entity and the governance of the board after the initial establishment. So I think the point you're looking at is eventually removed once the board is set up and put in place and begins to self-replicate.
Mr. Smith.
The first set of waivers is for the school superintendent. This is just really common and it's narrowed just to the licensure piece. So I'm just going to move past that and move into the licensure for teachers and principals. I think the applicant already provided information about how they're ensuring that their teachers meet Arkansas qualified teacher requirements. One legal issue, just to kind of clarify, I think it was just a typing issue. The applicant just needs to confirm that it's still seeking waivers that were in its initial application, 617, 919, 902, 410, 309, 302, and 615, 1004.
On behalf of the applicant, I will make that confirmation. If I may, I'd also like to add 2 other comments that I think are relevant in this area. First of all, there was a question as to whether West Wind potentially intended to utilize licensed teachers teaching outside of their license areas, and so therefore would need a waiver of Section 7 of the DESE rules governing teacher licensure. And so we agree that we want that waiver, and also will confirm that we're aware that special education licensure requirements cannot be waived.
Is there anything else the applicant would like to add about how it will be using the teacher licensure waiver?
I don't have anything. I don't know if Ms. Timmons would.
Yeah, I don't have anything at this time.
If there aren't any questions, I'll move on. I think in the presentation, again, a lot of this was addressed already. The next set of waivers has to do with the guidance counselor. They have narrowed it just to the licensure piece, and they will be complying with all the other requirements under the School Counseling Improvement Act of 2019. The only legal issue is that the rules they have cited have been repealed. The rules governing public school student services, those have been repealed, and therefore no waiver is necessary. So just need them to confirm they're aware that that has been repealed and no waiver is necessary.
We will confirm that
Yes.
that was an oversight.
The next set of waivers has to do with their library media program. I think it would be helpful for them to provide some additional information. I heard about their partnerships with the local libraries and things, but how they're providing those services on site. And then also they've cited something called licensure rules, which I'm not sure what they're referencing there, so a little clarity on those.
I will address the licensure rules that should be withdrawn, and then I believe Ms. Timmons can speak to the remaining piece.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we will provide Chromebooks to our students and classroom libraries so that the children will still have access to MyOn and lexicon programs. We also plan to partner with the Maumelle Library and take our students on trips to the library weekly. We also will partner with the bookstore, Barnes & Noble, and provide book fairs for the students as well.
If there aren't any questions on that, I'll move on. The next set of waivers has to do with the school nurse, which they addressed in their presentation. They will have a nurse, just not a RN. If that's correct, then I have no issues there, and we can move forward.
That is correct.
The next set of waivers is on the gifted and talented programs. They also addressed that in their presentation. There are no legal issues here, so if there are no questions from the panel members on how they're meeting the needs of those students, I'll move on. All right, the next set is the alternative learning environment waivers. There are just a couple of housekeeping things here. First, I'll say they've asked for a waiver. We ran into this yesterday. They've asked for a waiver of 648-101 at SEC. It should be 648, 102, and 103, not the entire subchapter. Can you confirm that for me, Tripp?
I will confirm that.
And I wanted to give the applicant an opportunity to provide some additional information on how it plans to meet the needs of students who can't function in a traditional classroom environment or who need additional supports, especially due to a disability or a behavior issue.
Sure. So I will speak to how we intend to support students. So in general, for any students who has an identified need for additional support, what that support will look at will officially be determined after we can look at their records. So once the student is admitted and enrolled, we'll review their records and see what supports are legally required, and then we will work as a team to implement them. Specifically for students who are often referred to for alternative education, that is actually my background and where I taught as a teacher. And so what we often saw were students were referred because they needed support around developing executive function skills, having better differentiation to access grade level material and feel successful in doing so, and then continued development in social emotional skills. And so we're looking to web and thread those throughout all aspects of the curriculum and the school in order to ensure students are supported. And then students that are not supported by our outline, which would fall under our RTII model for our Tier 1, will then work to move them through Tier 2, potentially Tier 3, until we can find a support and a system that really works for them.
Okay, if there are no questions on that, I'll move on. The next set of waivers are for teacher fair dismissal and public school employee fair dismissal. No legal issues there, and if there aren't questions, I'll skip on to number 9, which is the personnel policies. I think it would be really helpful here to get some additional information from the applicant about how these policies are going to be created, who's developing them, are they being created by the board? Since they're going to have at-will teachers, how are these policies being disseminated to teachers? This is all information that was not included in the rationale for the waiver request.
And I can address that. And also, I believe if it meets with Ms. Hyatt's approval, there were some questions about outstanding as to waivers, and I can address that in my response if that would be acceptable to her and the panel.
It's fine with me.
Okay. The policies will be drafted or reviewed, if they're not drafted in-house, by the principal and the executive director. The school's board of directors shall approve the policies. All personnel will receive copies of the policies, and the policies will be posted to the school's website. The policies may be changed during the school year if necessary. The waiver request for the statute on grievances, Art Code annotated 617-208, is being withdrawn. The applicant wishes, based on legal comments received, to amend its request for a waiver of Arkansas Code annotated 617-2301 to only 617-2301C. It wishes to withdraw its waiver request for 617-2302 and 617-2306. And based on legal comments received, amend its request for waivers of Art Code annotated 617-2203 and 617-2403 to 617-2201 at SEC and 617-2401 at SEC. Applicant confirms that it is aware that it must follow all federal and state minimum wage requirements and the requirements of the Fair Labor Standards Act. It withdraws its waiver request of Section 3-A.2 of the DESE standard rules and wishes to amend its request to the new rules in that area, specifically 5.01.4 and 6.01, to the extent that it will not have classified and certified policies per se, and it will not have employees' term classified and certified, as it won't have traditional salary schedules. The school will post the policies and salary schedules which cover all employees.
Tripp, can you repeat for me the ones you said were rescinded at the beginning? I got 2301 at SEC changed to 2301C, and the rescission of 3A2, 617-208, and 617-2302. Did I miss?
617-2306.
And they say attorneys are not fun. I'm going to double check just on those two sections of the website rules while Tracy's addressing other issues, just to review them, so I'll come back to that. If there are no questions on that piece, I'll move on to their
I do have a
school board.
question. So after your banter, are they posting their policies on their website?
Yes,
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
our banter. That's a nice way for it. Okay, so the next set of waivers have to do with the school board. We've talked extensively at this point about their governing structure. I believe that they need some additional waivers to fully effectuate their plan. Those are 613, 612C, which has to do with filling a vacancy on the board, 613, 615, and 616. And a little bit of 614, 101 at SEC, which is school elections. Can you confirm that you want to add those?
Yes, and also I think there was one other remaining issue as to 613-620, and we wish to amend our request on that to only subsection 5, capital A, little 2b, and that just concerns the form of the employment contract. The duties of the board would not change. It's just that it would not be approving a employment contract that is in standard statutory form because of the nature of the school.
Great.
And we do wish to amend the request for a waiver 614-101 to 614-101 at SEC.
Great. If there are no other questions on that, I'll move on to the next set, which has to do with school start date. I was unsure, just based on the information provided in the application, why this waiver was necessary. We talked about this yesterday, but 610-106 sets what the start date for every school should be. There is another law that specifically allows for a 4-day school week, and another law that specifically allows for a 12, like a year-round calendar. So if they're not falling under one of those three provisions, my question would be, what are they doing?
The reason for the request for of 610-106 to be waived is to allow West Wind to start its school year prior to mid-August. It will have a traditional 180-day school year, and it's not going to do a 4-day school week or a year-long school calendar.
Tripp, could you repeat that, please?
Sure. The reason for the request of 610-106 is to waive the portion that requires a start date no earlier than certain specified dates in mid-August. And it's the desire of the school to start its school year earlier than that. It will be a traditional length school year, 5 days a week, not 4, and not a year-long calendar or year-round calendar.
The intent is to start early August. What is the intent?
I'll let Ms. Timmons talk more about the school day, exact dates.
Yes, we do plan on starting early August. We don't have an exact date as of yet, but we do plan to start approximately a week or two before actual school begins. Public school, should I say.
Do you explain why?
Why we're starting early?
Yes, why you would start a week early if you're going the same 178-day calendar.
Well, it allows us the opportunity for recruitment purposes. For example, if we weren't able to pull our numbers that year, or when we start, it gives us a little more time before school begins to recruit more students.
The next set of waivers has to do with school elections. I believe that Tripp and I clarified this in the previous one, so I'm going to move on past that. The next set of waivers has to do with facilities. I think they intended to request for 616, 105, and 106, which are displaying the United States and Arkansas flags. They've only requested 616, 106, so can you confirm that you wish to include the additional waiver?
Yes, I will confirm that we wish to request the additional waiver.
And just for clarity, in leased building spaces, that's a common waiver, as they're not always able to fly a flag or have something attached to a leased property. The next set of waivers is for non-instructional duties and planning periods. My question here was a request to provide some additional rationale, especially how the applicant will ensure that teachers have enough time and are fairly compensated when they've requested a waiver of the minimum teacher salary, planning periods, and non-instructional duties.
And we have made some revisions in this area. Applicant is not requesting a waiver of Arkansas Code Annotated 617-111 concerning duty-free lunch periods. I think that's always been the case, but just wanted to clarify. And we wish to withdraw our request for a waiver of 617-117 concerning non-instructional duties. The only reason we are seeking a waiver of 6-17-114, which deals with teacher daily planning periods, is not to reduce the 200 minutes per week, but just the ability to allot that time in blocks or chunks of less than 40 minutes at a time if necessary.
All right, if there are no questions there, we'll move on to the last legal issue. The last set of waivers is for discipline. They've asked for some waivers that have to do with having written discipline policies, what has to be in the discipline policies, but didn't provide really any rationale for these waivers. I want to make sure that the parent and the student are engaged in those policies, that they're properly notified of those policies, and considering that they're also waiving the ALE provisions of the law, I want to make sure that there's a plan that's well thought out about how they're going to approach student discipline.
After further review, we've decided that we can prepare appropriate discipline policies that meet the statutory guidelines and provide for all the items and that Ms. Hyatt mentioned. And so we're going to withdraw our request for waivers of the statutory discipline policies.
All right, I'm going to review those two additional provisions from the website rules while Tracy comes and addresses the remaining concerns from the internal review committee.
Go ahead, Ms. Wright-McMurray.
Thank you. I did have a question I just wanted to go back to really quickly on the ALE. It sounds like, and just for my clarity, that there is a good plan in place to address students that are coming into the school, but once students are in the school and enrolled, and it's identified that they may need ALE services, is that a part of the overall plan as well, or is that not what's been considered? From what Ms. Connor shared, and if I missed it, I apologize, but it seemed like she spoke a lot about what happens when students are admitted, but I didn't hear what happens once they're in the school itself.
So I'm sorry, if I can just clarify to make sure I understand the question, is that if we enroll students with documentation saying that they are in need of an LEE placement, how would we accommodate that? Is that the question you're asking?
No, so if you have a student that maybe that hasn't been identified prior to, but once they get to your school, then that's something that comes to light. Is that a part of your planning, your process also?
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for the clarification. So we've mapped out a pretty rigorous RTI process. So we'll be navigating any additional academic or behavior supports for students through that process. So that tier one, we look to make sure that everything we're doing as a school is making sure that at minimum, 80% of our students are meeting all of our goals and metrics. But then that tier two is what allows us to start to drill down and refine and figure out for students who might need something slightly different, slightly more, slightly less. That is where we start to work through some of those questions and then on to tier three. And so with each part of those tiers, we would have systems that we would follow as an entire school, but we would really be looking at each student individually to assess what's going on, what we might think is the driving factor or the root cause, developing plans to address behaviors or academic needs, and then monitoring the success of those plans. And so that would continue to go throughout the entire process, all the way through tier three. And students can start that process for behavior or academic. They can go through it, they can go back and start again. That's what'll sort of allow us the flexibility to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the students while still being compliant with special education and other laws.
Thank you.
Ms. Webb?
The remaining concerns from other DESE units are financial. So the first one is that the fact that their budget was calculated on just short of their enrollment cap, which is 150. Their budgets, their revenues created based on 148 students. So within their application, question number 28, they state that they would need 108 students to be viable. So when you calculate the budget on 108 students, that creates a $273,548 deficit for the first year. So it is rare that charters have their full enrollment cap their very first year. Excuse me. In addition, in their current budget, the latest one that was sent this morning, They include revenue from RMAC funds. So they will not receive RMAC funds their first year of operation, and that was $5,000. And that can be variable, that number, because it's based on student Medicaid participation and the expenses from those. So that's a variable that could or could not be there even in the second year. Secondly, we did not see anything listed for an audit expense. So that's usually around $5,000 or $6,000 for that size of school. So by taking away revenue, adding another expense, even with the current budget submitted, that would leave them a balance of around $15,000 at the end of the year, which is very, very tight. That's all.
Madam Chair, if I may speak.
Yes, sir, Mr. Elliott, if you'll speak
Yes.
into the mic, pretty close, so it's hard to hear you.
Okay, is this a little bit better for everyone? Perfect. Okay, so if our enrollment was to drop to our minimum of 108, we would make some staffing changes. A couple would be the executive director and principal would be combined into one position. And then we would be able to remove 2 teachers and still be compliant with the teacher-student ratio. That would save us around $175,000. And then for additional expenditures, we would be able to cut around $75,000 more through our purchase services and supplies and still remain intact for our educational program. And so a total of $250,000 could be reduced. For the audit, we would not budget in the first year for audit costs. Those costs would happen in the second fiscal year because the audit process wouldn't happen until the second year of operations.
Would those budget cuts still allow you to provide one-to-one devices for your students?
Yes, ma'am. Technology would remain intact based off of our allocation, how much it would cost per student to obtain Chromebooks and technology devices. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure that we saw expenditures in the second year for an audit. However, that's $5,000 if they're going to cut staff. They may be able to take care of that.
Ms. Hyatt, are you ready for your follow-up?
Sure. So on the 2 provisions added from the district website rules, one of the provisions, 6.01, is fine. It has to do with personnel policies separated for classified and certified staff. Section 5.01.4 only requires them to post whatever salary schedule you have on your website. So I didn't hear a rationale for that waiver. Maybe they would like to provide some additional information.
Thought behind requesting the waiver of that provision is, again, the salary schedule as the school has a waiver is not going to look the same, so to speak, as a school district would. So that's the only reason for making that request. If it's felt that that type of schedule wouldn't require a waiver, then that's fine.
So you rescind the request for 5.01.4?
Yes.
Is that what I heard? Okay. Then we are all good with the waivers.
Dr. Williams, would you like to start with your questions?
Oh, yes. This is just, first of all, a good application. I've been going through as we've been discussing different things, but mainly more your thought process. Why grades 6 through 8?
Well, 6 through 8, we've worked with actually K through 8 in some of our programming, but 6 through 8 is a more comprehensive age group that understands and can comprehend the arts, and I believe the arts integration model better than an elementary school. At some point, we would like to advance to 6 through 12 at some point, but 6 through 8, we want to be sure that we can start here and be strong and successful in with these age groups.
Okay, I was going to ask you why not grow a grade per year, but I noticed you all are going to stick to 6 to 8, just grow those grade levels over 5 years. Okay,
Right.
good answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Baldwin?
Okay, thank you. 2 questions, and yes, good application, good presentation.
Thank
Very
you.
organized, very thoughtful, very sequential. I like that. The one question I did have though is, and I was looking back at your slide, that was the slide that talked about student curriculum, and you had something, you had a section called core content. Could you talk a little bit about what that core content is? And I guess what I'm looking for is reading, writing, and arithmetic, the core foundations that we have out there for kids. Is that going to be covered within your structure?
Yes. So for our core curriculum for that ELA, that reading, writing, the Wit and Wisdom is a curriculum for English that allows students to practice all aspects of science of reading along with writing throughout the creation of a project. So we would just modify the existing project so that it becomes art infused. We would follow the same with Eureka Math. So Wit and Wisdom, Eureka Math are from the same company, so they follow very similar outlines and pathways. And then for science, we have Next Generation Storylines that is also similar. It's project-based. We would revise it so that it's art-based projects at the end. And then social studies, again, it's the Arkansas Social Studies Toolkit. So it is looking and supporting students with learning history through primary and secondary documents. And so that's how we would ensure that we were hitting all of the core content. In addition to that, we'll be using something called pathway rubrics to help teachers modify and adjust their units to meet student needs. So if you think about standards for Arkansas or any standards anywhere, each standard has a number of skills embedded in that standard. So the pathway rubrics pull out those skills and they show, okay, what does that skill look like at a 6th grade, a 7th grade, and 8th grade level? So as the teacher's moving through the core content, they can look at the work product, the student work, and quickly assess whether or not that student is demonstrating mastery. And all of those are lined up to the state standards so that they'll be lined up to the annual assessment.
Okay, all right. And then my other question was a financial question. The budget that you have does show, I guess, 148 students, which in year one, if you don't quite hit that, or if you ramp up to that over time during that year, how do you fund your shortfall, if you have a shortfall because of that?
I'm sorry, you said if we have a short...
If your expenses are more than your revenue because your number of students are not at break even.
Brent, I may be able to speak to that. This is Chris Bell, School Business Advisor Services, serving as on the finance team of West Wind. So yes, great question. We have been able to demonstrate viable budgets at both the 148 and at the 108 level. And so as enrollment, if initial enrollment was not at that 148 mark, we could make the appropriate adjustments. We will continuously monitor those student levels and the fluctuations therein throughout the year and make adjustments to our expenditures to ensure that they align with the projected revenues based on actual student counts. And those adjustments would come through, historically what we've seen is at times if there's significant dips in the enrollment, as Brent said before, we'll adjust through staffing, but oftentimes there are expenses related to each child that we can adjust along the way.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Ken Rich with APSRC, could I be recognized?
Rich.
Ken Rich, APSRC. Mr. Baldwin, we've worked on several occasions with Ms. Timmons, Mr. Elliott, and also with Mr. Bell. And they do have a very aggressive budget with regards to the number of students. But I think Ms. Timmons has said it well in that they already have a lot of students involved with the Arts Foundation that want to attend this type of school. So they have maybe a little more read on the number of students that might want to attend. Also the number of students that are not able to attend the Academics Plus charter school in Maumelle that will be possibly interested in attending that school. So I do think based on what I've seen in working with them, that they can make adjustments to the budget if necessary to be viable.
Thank you. Ms. Sonia, you ready?
I did have a question, just wanted some more clarification on your plans for offering CTE courses at the school, and just wanted to get some information, just an idea of how you chose the courses that you're planning to offer. Like, for example, the keyboarding course that you have listed is a course that we would normally have offered to our lower grades at the elementary level, and so why would you choose this course over the course that would typically be offered at the middle school level?
So the courses that we outlined were the courses that we believe to be required within certain grade levels, according to the Department of Education. If we misread or misidentified those courses as we were setting up the course catalog, we would continually go back and adjust. But the CTE courses were picked because they best aligned with our intent and opportunity to take what the students are learning in their arts elective, their core content, and really make sure that we're saving space to fuse all of that for students to develop their student career pathway and identify and connect with the work that they're doing and potential careers.
So I guess, would you guys be willing to look at other courses that could fill that same need, I guess, would be my question.
Oh, of course, definitely. It was one of the things we want to make sure that we're always doing is that we're going back and making sure that we're fully in alignment with the state requirements. If there's something we missed or someone has a better idea, and we're always open to integrate, make some changes. And then because we want to also make sure that in the unfortunate case, if a student ever does decide that arts integration is not for them and they leave and go to a different school, that everything we're doing within our alternative model is easy to translate and understandable for any school that they would transition to. So it would be smooth for the family and the student. And so that's part of the trying to figure out the best possible code for those classes.
One of the topics that we have not talked very much about that I would love to hear you talk about was your plan for engaging parents. And I've never seen it spelled out as well in an application as it is in this one. So would you take just a moment to highlight that, because I'm really excited to hear your vision for that.
Okay, Jen, did you want to take that one or no?
Sure. Sorry, like I said, I've lost power today, so we're making it all work. So our family engagement, we intend to have and offer a variety of opportunities for families to be involved. So as Teresa spoke, it is really meant to be a true community-based arts integrated experience, so that families would have the opportunity to volunteer and participate in the school day. They would have opportunities to participate in one-off events. They would have opportunities to engage in leadership roles, helping make some decisions, and really helping us set the appropriate and best tone for making sure that communication that we're sending out at the school, systems we're putting in place, make sense for the families that we're serving. And we we agree, like we think this is a crucial part of any successful school. So we want to make sure that we are listening from the get-go and integrating ideas, opinions, concerns, so that everyone feels like it's a place that they can just come and have a conversation in our bistro.
And as you've seen through our foundation now, we implement and we encourage and we empower parents and families to be involved, not just the students. So we do that in our programming now, and we will continue to do that through the proposed charter.
I believe you had one other guest that's online now that may want to speak briefly.
Keto Mama Lou, she was on Project Runway, and yeah, she's able to join us. So thank you. You're on mute, Keto.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the time to speak on this. The arts is a love of mine. It's probably my very first love. It's something that as a child growing up in West Africa, I can think of anything but this growing up. And as a child who was gifted, and I say gifted because it's not something I went to school to learn, it's something that truly was given to me by the powers that be. I remember being in pre-K and just being outside finger painting and just loving every single moment of it. My parents didn't know what to do with me, though. I grew up with African parents that believed in math and science and pretty much everything that STEM does. But although I got through those classes, that's not where I excelled. So growing up in Africa, obviously we didn't have the resources to even explore who I was as a child, nor was it even recognized. So once we did move to the US and get exposure to that, there were some parts of my life where I was able to do music lessons because my parents were financially able to take me to those classes. But once our financial situation changed, all of that changed. The only place I could get art was at school, and it was this one art class. And obviously I never wanted to leave that class, but I had to. But outside of that, there was nothing in my community that I could go to and be exposed to it. I just found it any way I could in the Sunday paper. If you're old enough, that little cartoon that always came and said, draw me. And I was always there drawing that little birdie because that was the only way I could like find it. And I just wanted to like sink it up every day like a sponge. So to have something like this in my life as a child would have excelled me. I probably wouldn't even have time to be on this Zoom call today because I'd probably be somewhere just jet setting, because I feel like the arts, when you have artistic children, it's like anything else. You have to nurture it. You have to sit there and literally guide it and feed into it and find ways for it to be expressed, because it's like something like it's like a pressure cooker. It's just boiling inside of you and you just want to get it out. When we do these camps at the Timmons Art Foundation, I'm privileged not just to be on the board, but to be a part of all of the creativity that comes with the camp. I think those are like my favorite meetings when we sit and decide, okay, what are we going to do this year? And like, I'm just the idea thrower. I just throw them out there and just make everybody else like scramble. Okay, well, how can we make this happen? So it's exciting for me because I become that little kid again, and I see what their faces are going to look like. Like this summer, we did it virtually, which I'm so glad we did, because everything else was canceled. School was canceled. Prom was canceled. Like it was just a canceled era. And I was like, we can't do this to these children. They look forward to this. And although we couldn't take all the children we usually can take, the few that we did take, I mean, delivering those bags to their homes and just for them to see, lay eyes on us, 6 feet apart and just saying, hey, we miss you. We can't wait to see you next week, was huge for them. Like they need to see mentors in their community. And that's what I love about the Timmons Art Foundation. It's not like we're starting this day, we end this day. After that, we're still mentors. They see, like Eudora said, they see us in Walmart. They see us when they come to my shows, be like, I know Miss Cutto. And it's important for me as an African-American woman to show that I'm an artist. This is what I do full time. It's not a hobby. This is what my life career is, and it has taken me across this entire planet. And I'm grateful for that. And they need to see that. They need to see that they can touch me,
You know, like people say celebrity, I'm very grounded to this earth, but I need them to know that, hey, I do know a celebrity, and I do miss Kato, and she gives me hugs, and she's there to support me if I want to be a designer or a scientist. And the Arts Foundation has allowed us to reach these children where they are, especially this year virtually. Those kids were on the Zoom before we got on every morning, and they enjoyed it. And when we left, they were like, can we just stay on and do an after party? Like, that speaks volumes. When you go to school, usually when the kids run out and are ready to go home, they're not engaged. They're ready to go. You never captivated them. When you can grab them and they don't even want to leave you, that's something. And as a child that grew up with the village that really helped me be who I was, I had strangers who saw my family when we lost everything in Liberia. One woman in particular who looked in my sketchbook at church, and based on what she saw, she paid for me to go to design school. That was huge for me. So that act in itself has always allowed me to give back. I'm always paying it forward. It's a gift I can never repay. But being a part of the Timmons Art Foundation, being on the board, being a teacher, and hopefully in the future being on anything that's involved with this school and giving it back is my life's mission. I live right here in Maumelle, Arkansas. It's gonna be right down the street from me. They're gonna have to kick me out to like not have me there every day, but we need this. We need this in Arkansas. We need this for this time for our children. We need to embrace more arts and say that arts is a valid foundation to make money and to live a life. And I'm a proof of that. And I want there to be a bigger, broader spectrum for children, for adults. You know, we have parents who come in and like, I wish I could do this, but why not? You know, so I think we need to look at it differently and know that when you're learning in school, but you're not being pulled in, creating a program where you can put arts in there and make it fun and make it interesting, they're not going to want to leave again. They're going to get captivated again all over again, and you're going to reach them. You're going to be able to teach them differently. I was one of those kids, and I always felt like I wasn't smart enough, but I just felt like I wasn't taught the right way. So this approach is going to take it to another level, period, because we need it. It's needed. We needed it yesterday, the year before, and I'm fully on board with this. I'm full support of it. I've lent my name to it. I'm lending my time, because this foundation that has been set is not just about Teresa Timmons Schamberger. It's not just about the school or the foundation. It's about me as an artist, standing up for the arts and saying art matters. And we're going to make sure that when we are teaching these children, we're not just there for the 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're there outside of it. We're there when they don't have the art supplies they need. We're there when they want to sing, but they can't make it in the choir. We are there for them and their parents. And when you see these people come on here and give their statements and get tearful, it's because we are a family. We are that village, and we have to go back to that. We cannot abandon that thought. I grew up with that village in Africa, and they came here to America. And now that I'm here in the U.S., in Arkansas, I have never abandoned that village. I have a village that surrounds me. She has produced my shows at Fashion Week, and the arts is important to her because she is an artist deep inside as well. Our first love is dance, and although we've gone beyond that in our lives, we know what it's like to want to do something and want to be something, and you don't know how you're going to do it. So now to be able to see physically people who are doing it, a Tawana Campbell-Berry who sings vocal and they see her on commercials, you know, Kato Momolu who they can see at New York Fashion Week and go on TV and watch on ATN a documentary like, oh my God, that's Miss Kato, and they're in my documentary. That was important for me, for them to be there to show that you're not just the thing that I write on my resume. I love you and you matter to me, and I want you to know that you can be bigger than me, you can be better than me, and you will. So I'm going to make sure that happens. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Panel, any other questions, or are we ready for a motion?
I just wanted to make a quick comment that I appreciate all the hard work you guys have put into this, and I so appreciate when we have more opportunities for our students to be able to learn about their passion and their mission and to get their voice. And so I think by doing so, some of the challenges and issues that we currently see in some of our schools and for students beyond can be addressed if they have that voice and mission and passion established and know what needs to happen for them. So just commend you for your work and for your passion for taking on this opportunity.
Thank you.
So I move approved.
I second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Wright McMurray and a second by Mr. Baldwin to approve this application. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. If you'll give us just a moment, there'll be a voting sheet. Mr. Baldwin, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you. I voted for the recommendation to approve the program, your charter school. I thought your design of this is very creative and very thoughtful. And I think it's a good option for educating children.
Ms. Wright McMurray?
I voted for all the reasons that I've already stated. I think this would be a great opportunity for students in Little Rock. And then definitely for some of the other comments that were made about supporting our students of color that sometimes struggle with those good opportunities to grow and be challenged in an enriched and supportive environment.
Dr. Williams?
I voted for the motion. This brings another opportunity, an arts-based opportunity for learning for both the students and their parents. Thank you.
Ms. Kaufman, we can't hear you.
That's because my mute button was on. What a great speech you missed. I said that I voted for the charter. The application was complete. The passion for the students is evident. The curriculum is a true arts-infused curriculum. And I look forward to learning alongside you with your parent engagement plan. So I'm hoping that that becomes a model for others to look toward. So congratulations. Your next step is to appear at the state board meeting in September. Any other comments or questions from our panel members? Except a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. We really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Thank you to the